that younger buyers are looking at is environmentally conscious pieces. So Megan and I come from a generation where we started talking about global warming and earth issues in elementary school, and it's just kind of part of the culture that we were raised with, part of the educational consciousness that we were raised with. So buyers or makers that are recycling materials, makers that are using
responsibly sourced,
right, or some even create, from byproducts of other manufacturing. So anytime you can bring something like that in or share that story, because a lot of times you might already have things in your boutique or in your gallery that kind of fit that story, but if you can tell that, if you can relate that story to the buyer, or to the visitor to your shop, that's a connection that they can make with the item that they might not have otherwise made.
Well, and I think too they're looking for things too. I know, and I don't have the booth number, but we walked by the Steel Cow booth. Is all the cow paintings, and I noticed in their booth they had a 1% for the planet sign, and so those are things like that younger buyers are looking for. We want to spend money on companies that are environmentally and socially responsible, whether that's small makers or big people. So if your business is doing that, or if the people that are buying from you are doing that, that makes us more likely to support you.
Yeah. Also another farm reference, Gatsky Metal. Now they are doing much bigger pieces at a higher investment point, but that's another point I was going to make too, is that it's not, younger buyers aren't afraid of making an investment, but they are going to kind of spend more time because it's a larger chunk of the money that they may have to spend. But Gatsky Metal creates really cool, funky, colorful, modern pieces out of old tractors and old farm equipment, and using recycled barn wood. And it's definitely a different aesthetic, but it's something that can kind of cross a lot of boundaries, I think, no matter if you're marketing to a 30-something or marketing to a 50, 60-something.
Well, and I think speaking of furniture pieces, something else that I think is really important to think about in your stores is that 30-somethings, a lot of them are nesting right now. They're, slightly younger, they're going into their first apartment, but now you're starting to look at your first house and your first space that you can really customize. So I think that I would say that among our peers, yes, we spend money on clothes and jewelry, but we spend a lot of money on home decor, art, accessories, stuff that really expresses our personality. So I think a lot of that, and housewares, tabletop housewares sort of stuff, anything kind of kitchen-y, domestic. I think there is this domestic resurgence among the younger generation. There's interest in food, there's an interest in health, good, wholesome food. You talked about buyer shops at Whole Foods. There's an interest in cooking and that sort of thing. And I think there are some great examples here. Girls Can Tell and Fisk and Fern, who are both in 2320. They both do screen printed. We do love the screen printed too. They both do the screen printed tablewares, and I think that's an area too where the younger buyer, you can buy something for your house that's a great little spruce up, but it's not a giant financial risk either. So I think that's another great area, that kind of tabletop housewares that really we see our generation buying a lot of.
Yeah, and kind of tying into the domestic piece and the price piece, things like that you can kind of put in with your IKEA furniture, that you're still bringing with you, because sometimes that stuff is fun, and it's the stuff that we have to buy a lot of times. But we're looking to kind of take that stuff to another level. So pulling in textile, custom designed textiles or custom designed kitchen pieces can take an IKEA kitchen or an IKEA living room and turn it into something that feels a lot more special.
Yeah, and I think there are a couple of ceramics artists that we like that are here at the show that would be good to mix up. Lollipop Pottery in 2724, they're a good one. And then Ed and Kate Coleman in 3016. They're both, I think, really good examples of that. And I know, I don't have a lot of money to spend on furniture. All my furniture is hand-me-down still, but I have a ton of handmade pottery, and that's something that I love that I can use to mix up my table. So it's okay, here's my table that looks like everybody else's, but it's got all the cool stuff on it that's different. So I think we're going to talk about the marketing piece a little bit.
Sure.
So I think one of the things that's really important to keep in mind is that it's not enough just to bring the these items into your store, you have to make sure that people know that you're carrying these newer, fresher pieces. And I see that a lot, even with like, you know, some more traditional craft shows say they're bringing in new artists, but you look at the publication and you don't know. So what can you do in your marketing materials to let people know that you're bringing in these fresh, new products? And a great idea that Tara had was something that we see a lot in our group is that we have our own craft superstars in like the 20s and 30s. We have our own, you know, Girls Can Tell. Sarah here is a great example of that. We have our own online craft superstars who have a great online network. So if you bring someone like that in for a trunk show and you advertise that trunk show, they will actually start to bring their network into your store because they have their own following. So if you can kind of track down some of like our rock stars, we go where they go.
Yeah,
you know,
totally.
We're groupies.
Well, and I think to that point, you know, you guys have probably all heard about the social media marketing revolution. You know, you got to be on Twitter, you got to have a Facebook page, and I think a lot of business owners are left saying, well, what does that do for me exactly? Why do I need an email list? Why do I need a Facebook page? And it's just as important in kind of creating those things as to also tap into the networks that exist already. And that's exactly what we're talking about with like involving some of these kind of new craft superstars. They have this social network already. They've kind of got it down. You know, we've been brought up with, you know, how to kind of connect with people online, and they can help you do that by bringing in their online network and kind of, you know, exposing that network to you in a whole new way. So that's kind of where your social media tie-in comes, you know? So yeah, you got that Twitter page, yeah, you got that Facebook page. Get some traffic going by involving the artists that you're buying here at the show, you know? Ask people if they can post your store to their Facebook page. Ask them if they can, you know, get excited about where their work is going. Because that's really going to kind of create a buzz around your shop in your geographic area.
Well, and I would add too, you know, like as a buyer, so I would love to, you know, be on Twitter and be on Facebook promoting the store. Like I'm super excited when new stores pick me up the show, and I want to share that with my network. But I also don't have time to sit down and figure out if every new gallery I picked up is on Twitter. So, but if your Twitter handle is on the business card that I'm stapling to your order, you can bet I'm going to tweet about it. Usually about 3 seconds after you walk away from my booth. Oh, I'm in such and such a place now. So I think that, again, like even if you aren't really comfortable with social media, just having the presence that you can then let us, as we're coming into your gallery, push for you, I think that makes a big difference.
Right. Also on the marketing piece, you know, and kind of going back to the money piece, because I just kind of want to keep dispelling this myth that 20-somethings or 30-somethings don't have money to spend. You know, it's kind of like the Sex and the City story. You know, the girls, they go out and they shop and they get really expensive, you know, Manolo Blahnik shoes, or they get really expensive Kate Spade handbags. There's a story around those items for our generation, or for a, you know, even a slightly older or a slightly younger generation.
And there's a brand recognition.
And there's brand recognition. So what your obligation as store owners is to start crafting that story about the products in your store for, you know, a younger generation, so that it's not just, you know, I want to buy a pair of Manolo Blahniks. It's I want a full kitchen set of Girls Can Tell, or I want a full Megan Almond jewelry set, or I want to have a Queen Bee Creations bag. You know, so people can have that kind of ownership, that name ownership over the things that they buy, even in a, you know, in a younger generation.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to too, like, you know, we do have our craft superstars, our, you know, the next generation, and so we are looking for those names, and so I think it's important that
you can make your own superstars.
That's true.
Too.
Also, yeah, none of us have a problem being a superstar in
no.
our store. That's